Hey everyone, welcome to the Coaching Union Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Rodriguez, and today I'm delighted to be joined by pitching coach Tim Nolan. Together, we dive into coaching baseball in Southern California, his book, Pitcher Consciousness 5.0, and the Wolfpack Code. A quick note, Tim's coaching style sometimes uses strong language, so listener beware. Remember, if you're a player or a coach looking for one-to-one mentorship, email me at thecoachingunion@gmail.com. Now, let's dive into episode 7 with Tim Nolan. Hey, Tim, welcome to the Coaching Union Podcast.
Hey, John, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Tim, we're here today to talk a little bit about your experience coaching baseball in Southern California, your book, Pitcher Consciousness, the PC5 system. But first, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Take us through your journey in baseball and where you're at right now and kind of how you got there.
Sure. So I played high school ball at Sonora High School for Rich Lotting. He taught me a lot about the mental side when I was in high school. He used to tell me all the time, like, Timmy, you got to be a fucking cocky prick. And I really take that with me every single day. And that's something that I really instill in my pitchers today. He had me read, what was it? The Mental ABCs of Pitching by Harvey Dorfman. And that book's still a staple in what I do. I played JC ball at Fullerton College for Nick Buscardo, and I was lucky to have Paul Abbott as my pitching coach. He was a big leaguer all through the 90s and early 2000s. Paul came out to the mound one time. I had bases loaded, and he said, Timmy, work ahead, stay ahead, send the fucking hitter back to the fucking dugout where they fucking came from. And I actually have, right now I coach at Laguna Beach High School, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I say that over and over to the pitchers, and they repeat it back to me, and I literally brainwash them to send hitters back to the fucking dugout, and that's huge for me as a coach. I transferred to Biola after Fullerton College. I was nationally ranked for saves and appearances. John Verhoeven was my coach. He was another big leaguer. I've had really good coaches over the years. In high school, I had Matt Luke as an instructor, so my coaching pedigree's really strong. After my junior year in college, I ended up tearing my labrum. I threw really hard before I got injured. I had scouts that were looking at me. So after I got injured, I had this guy named Ben Orr. He was running a camp called Up Baseball Camp out of Biola, and so I helped with the camp, and I had a bunch of parents coming up to me saying, like, hey, my kid really likes your coaching style. I was just really intense, like a drill sergeant back then, and they were like, yeah, my kid really likes working with you. Do you do lessons? So Ben said, charge whatever you want, dude. So I started doing pitching lessons after my junior year, and so a couple years later, I ended up getting into coaching high school ball, and then in 2014, I coached summer ball with my buddy Brian Southern for the OC Blue Sharks, where that was where I met you when you were coaching for the Legends, and so I coached a little bit more high school ball. Ended up at Nogales. We set the school record for lowest team ERA in school history. I've coached in the Northwoods League. Where else have I coached? The Hamptons. The Hamptons Collegiate League was probably the best coaching experience I've ever had. I stayed in this house with this 90-year-old guy with really bad Alzheimer's. Every time you open a beer can, it's because of that guy. He invented Pop Tops. So my host family was this 90-year-old guy who invented Pop Tops. Like every time you open a beer can, it's because of Sandy Gilpin. He passed away, rest in peace. It was awesome. It was just him, his caretaker, and his 17-year-old son. And so there was a brewery about 2 blocks away from the house, and I used to visit there after each game, and I'd come home. God, that was such a fun summer, man. I can't say enough good things. Our general manager was actually a British guy, and he was a He was an old British guy, and he looked like he could have been in Led Zeppelin. Picks me up from the airport, and the first thing he says to me, he goes, "Laddie, I don't know the first thing about baseball. I know cricket." It was just that summer was a trip. It was an awesome summer. And let's see, I've coached summer ball a few other times, but I'd say probably my most impressive story, because I mean I've done consultations and stuff on the mental side, but my most impressive story was this elite softball pitcher. I'm not going to say her name, but people can probably figure it out when I say the result. But she got the she worked with me and she posted the lowest whip and lowest ERA of her career. And then right after that, she ended up becoming the first female athlete to sign $1 million contract. Right now, I coach at Laguna Beach High School. We're 10-0 in league. 10-0 in league. We're 4-0 in league. We're 10-0 as of right now. Our pitching staff is lights out, and they're really buying into the system that I teach on the mental side. We call it the Wolfpack code, but in my book, Pitcher Consciousness 5.0, it's the 5 mental tools. When I first got there, I introduced it to them, and they just kind of took it and ran. So that's been awesome. But yeah, that's pretty much my story.
That's a really good story, Tim. And so you're the first. Well, Daniel Cadland he's a SoCal native, but he kind of has made his coaching career outside of Southern California. You're probably the first SoCal guy to work in all these places. Like I'm hearing you played at Fullerton for Nick Fiscardo and Paul Abbott. You might have played, my brother was there in 2009, I think. When did you play there?
2007.
So you just missed him. You just missed each other. But he played for Fiscardo and he was a pitcher, and Paul Abbott was his pitching coach. And he absolutely loved him. He loved Paul Abbott. Getting coached by a former big leaguer, really special. Biola, I don't know if people realize how good Biola was when they were in NAIA in the early 2000s. You mentioned Ben Orr, who he runs the FCA, correct? He did the catch and he did the SoCal Shepherds, Fellowship of Christian Athlete, all the camps.
Yeah, it used to be called up baseball, and then he got into FCA, and now it's FCA.
Right. And I'm eager to find, so that's a Christian camp. How did the F bombs? Did you have to tailor that, or did they
Oh,
buy into it?
no. I Ben told me hey, you can't talk like that at this camp. I'm like, okay.
Okay. So you adapted. That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I was just seeing, I was thinking how that would work, just knowing Ben and knowing the program that he runs, and has done a really good job with it for many years in Southern California. Nogales High School, legit program. What team did you coach for in the Northwoods?
Waterloo Buck.
Okay, nice. Waterloo Bucks, the Hamptons League. So you got in there with some collegiate summer league, which is so good for the coaching reps. It's a special level. And I won't ask you about the softball pitcher's name, but I might be able to guess.
I'll
Uh,
tell you
so
off I'll tell you off camera.
okay. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. We're not name drop. We're not here to name drop.
Yeah.
So, a really rich coaching background, especially in Southern California. You mentioned Pitcher Consciousness 5.0, the book that you've published. Can you go into that a little bit? How did you develop it? You mentioned a little bit about the Wolfpack code. What's in there, and what are the principles that you build off?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book Pitcher Consciousness 5.0, it contains the 5 mental tools of pitching, which I invented as a grad student. The 5 mental tools are, I sum it up with the word pitch, Pitch, because Albert Bandura talked about the easiest way to model elite skills is to condense it into a cognitive representation, which basically an acronym. So I use Pitch. Huge fan of Albert Bandura, by the way. He was nice enough he responded to a few of my emails over the years before he passed away.
Wow.
I felt kind of cool that he would actually respond to me.
Yeah, that's massive. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So pitch, so presence. The mental tool number one is presence. So you want to carry yourself with presence. You also want to have presence of mind, focus one pitch at a time. It's all about cognitive, emotional, and physiological control. Like Raymond Cattell's Big Five personality model. So it's really stability in that aspect. So it's controlling your thoughts and your emotions and your physiology. So that's presence. Then there's intent. The second one's intent. It's all about going from the me versus me where you're fighting yourself. Derek Johnson talks about it in his book, The Complete Guide to Pitching. It's going from the me versus me where you're fighting yourself to the me versus you where you're like, fuck the hitter, where you have that whole like fuck you mode basically. Like the hitter wants to take something from you and you gotta make it personal. And Tim Grover, I'll talk more about Tim Grover later, but he was Michael Jordan's personal trainer from '89 till he retired, and he wrote a really good book called Relentless. Relentless is one of my favorite. It's actually my favorite book on the mental side. And he talks about going to the dark side. Basically, what you want to do is
Yeah.
you want to conjure up things that things that pissed you off over the years, and then what you want to do is you want to single out the ones that make you like white hot, like you're ready to fight somebody. And then what you want to do is you want to turn that into a nice icy simmering anger just beneath the surface. And so yeah, that's basically what you do to pitch with intent. Like if I just expected to throw the ball the way that I visualize, how would I do it? I'd throw the ball with fucking intent. Third one's trust. Trust is basically scouts call it pitchability. It's having quality feel for what pitch to throw and when. I actually model it a lot off of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do martial arts system. Basically throwing any pitch anytime. So the softball pitcher I was telling you about, her mindset on the mound is throwing any pitch anytime. When she pitches, she threw low to mid 70s and she topped out at 77, but she would throw any pitch anytime and the deception was off the roof, and that's why her strikeout total was so high. And it's something that I really instill in with my pitchers is throwing any pitch anytime. Then the fourth one's command, basically being able to throw the ball where you want, when you want. And then an extension of that is having self-discipline and being a good teammate and all that stuff. Yeah, and then the most important one, well, they're all equally important, but then there's hitters away, which is your general self-efficacy towards sending hitters back to the fucking dugout where they fucking came from. I repeat that phrase a lot over and over because I want people to be fucking brainwashed to send hitters back to the fucking dugout because that's the name of the game. A lot of front offices, they have this term called run prevention, and I think it does a disservice to the pitchers because it puts your focus on what you don't want, preventing runs. Pitching's offense, man. It's all about going out there and having the mindset, how many hitters can I send back to the fucking dugout? Like, so I call it out production instead of run prevention. So, and then the PC5. So the PC5 is just an extension of the five mental tools. So within each of the five mental tools is five five different things or components that the pitchers that basically as a scout what you look for. So for presence, for instance, there's the pre-pitch routine, which is huge. So a lot of people say, well, you got to focus one pitch at a time. Well, how do you do that? People used to say that to me when I was in high school and college, like focus one pitch at a time. Well, how do I do that? And the answer is you got to have a pre-pitch routine, consistent pre-pitch routine. So the template that I teach is breathe. You want to breathe fully like that. So when I was working with Long Beach State, I had the opportunity to work with Darren McCacken. He ended up making it to the big leagues. Darren, before every single pitch, like you can see his shoulders rise, you can see his chest expand. And I remember talking to him in the stands when I was doing my charts and in between innings, and I'd say, tell me about that. Tell me about that deep breath that you take. And he would say, well, that's just me reminding myself that I'm focused on winning this pitch. It's all about winning this pitch. You want to win this pitch. So the breathing part means you're focused one pitch at a time on this pitch, because the most important pitch in baseball or softball is the pitch that's about to be thrown. So there's breathe, and then what you want to do is you want to visualize the last 6 feet of the ball. So visualize the last 6 feet of the pitch before the plate. Visualize the hitter looking bad, whatever it is, like really quickly visualize it. And then you also want to have a mantra. You want to have a short phrase that a word or a short phrase that you say in your head over and over that makes you feel like a cocky prick. So, he's a Marine now. Ty Provencher, he was another guy that was a pitcher on Long Beach State. And I remember talking to him and I said, what are you telling yourself when you're on the mound? Because he pretty much all the pitchers on Long Beach State were dirty that year. 10 of them ended up going to pro ball, but Ty would say, fuck, he held his glove up and he goes, fuck the hitter, fuck the hitter, fuck the hitter. So I borrowed it from Ty Provencher. So basically you want to have a mantra to direct your intention. So you want to breathe, visualize, use your mantra to direct your intention. And then the last part is you want to throw the ball with intent. So if I just expected to throw the ball the way that I visualized, how would I throw it? With fucking intent. So it's you have cognitive activity and then you go from no cognitive activity to just executing the pitch. And then what else? My charting system. So it's I talk about it in my book, and I also talk about it in my audio CD, the ball game experience. It's called QPI, Quintic Psychomechanical Interrelation. It's I borrowed it from Albert Bandura's triadic reciprocal causation, where it's Bandura's triadic reciprocal causation is the two-directional relationship between cognition, behavior, and social feedback. So the QPI model is the interrelation between pitcher's cognition, mechanics, pitch efficacy, and then there's the hitter response, which is their swing, whether or not they swing, basically how the hitter responds, and then there's the result. So it's the interrelation between those 5 factors. When I was at Long Beach State, I only focused on the pitching aspect, but now if I have the time, I'll focus on all 5 of those components. Maybe eventually they'll do a TrackMan where they can actually document all that stuff too.
So I'm hearing mental skills being tracked and charted.
Yep.
Is that's quite a novel idea, Tim?
Thank you.
But I love where your head's at there. There's a lot to unpack. So the pitch acronym is presence, intent, trust, command, and hitters away.
Yes.
And then you kind of broke it down a little bit into what those words actually mean. And there's a lot of theory. I get a lot of theory attached to them, especially like Bandura's work you just mentioned with its reciprocal determinism, right? Is that the
Yeah, I think it's called triadic reciprocal causation.
triadic reciprocal causation? So it's the players, it's the pitcher's confidence based on the social aspects and the task a little bit, or how they accomplish the task.
Yep.
So, and that kind of ties into a little bit when you talked about intent. So what I'm hearing, I'm trying to, because there's a lot of theory in there. And so you have Bandura's stuff. It links a little bit to ecological dynamics, a little bit where you have like the task, the organism, and the environment, but it's more behavioral ecological dynamics. So you get on this, for lack of better words, you get on this track and you just kind of ride the roller coaster. Once all these things are in the right place, the person, the environment around them, and the result, they kind of get into this flow state. Am I butchering that, or is that kind of what the theory is?
That's actually it's actually great that you mentioned flow state, because that's what intent's all about. So presence is like a lot of pitchers they'll have cognitive activity going on. What is it? It's a lot of theta waves. I don't know too much about the nerve. I think it's too many theta waves, and then you get to the alpha waves, which is where you have the flow state. I might be butchering that, but I think it's more alpha waves. You want
We'll
more alpha
fact
waves
check
when you're
later.
in flow state.
Yeah,
But
it sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. But what I really like about this, and I don't know, maybe on the surface, the what is it? Pardon my French. Sorry, mom, if you're listening. But send the fucking hitter. What's the phrase that you say over and over again?
send the fucking hitter back to the fucking dugout where they fucking came from.
There you go. And that's on your audiobook that you sent me and I listened to. And at first on the surface you're like, "What? That's not." But I I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's actual science behind it and you mentioned it a little bit when it comes to hitters away and intent, where you want that external focus of attention. You want to pitch like you're on offense,
Yes,
right? You don't
absolutely.
want it to be about you. You don't want it to be about your, oh, I've got to get my front, I got to keep my front side strong. I got to stay in my back hip. I got to do this. I got to do that. And you have cognitive overload. And then you are on defense. Then you are trying to prevent runs. But the way you frame it, it's not just out there dropping f-bombs. It's actually putting yourself into giving yourself external cues, focusing on the batter and getting the batter out. And I love the Tim Grover reference as well. I love that book Relentless. And he was also, by the way, Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade's, for anyone who doesn't know who Tim Grover is. Like, he's coached the best of the best of the best of the best. So he says, like, just boiling under the surface, but it's like that external, it shifts the focus externally, which is backed by science. It leads to better performance. It leads to less choking. The yips don't happen when you're focused externally, when you have that focus on the hitter, getting the hitter out and making the hitter do something. So I love that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to unpack all this and kind of peel the layers of the theory behind it. Am I off, or is that kind of where the intent part comes into play?
No, no, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And the whole going from like, is my shoulder right and all this stuff. I actually have a term called mechanical fixation. That's the opposite symptom that detracts from hitters away. And then for a lack of intent, it's the internal focus of the me versus me. So basically, what you want to do is you want to get out of your head and have the fuck you mode, like fuck the hitter, basically. So no, you hit the nail on the head, dude.
So I'm curious to know. So you've implemented this across college and high school levels, and you've had success, especially this year at Laguna Beach. You guys are crushing it. You have three pitchers committed to Division I programs right
Yeah,
now. Is it three?
yeah, it's three.
So three D1 pitchers. You guys are undefeated with an ERA under one. Like you said, they're taking on to that wolf pack mode. They're taking on to these principles. How do you deliver this to them? How do you package it up? What's the delivery like? Because you start talking about Bandura self-efficacy theory, and they might get lost. But so how do you tailor it, and how do you get those results on the field with them?
Yeah, so early, like when I first got out there, I was kind of just talking about the five mental tools. But then after I think it was a tough practice. So a couple of the pitchers kind of struggled, and I made an offhand comment. I said, "Well, I wouldn't throw you to the wolves if I didn't think you're a wolf." And one of my pitchers said, "Wolf pack." So I ended up leaving practice, and then I showed up the next day with this whole thing laid out because of what he said. I was like, "Okay, we're not the breakers. We're the fucking wolf pack, and we have a wolf pack code that we abide by." So instead of talking about the five mental tools, I basically gave them a new identity because they won 10 games the entire season the year before, and they finished like fourth or fifth in league last year. So I gave them an entire a new identity. We're like the wolf pack. And as the season's gone on, like a bunch of the position players want to get in with our meetings and stuff after practicing games because like it's the cool thing to do. Like everybody wants to be part of the fucking wolf pack. So the wolf pack code is so what I'll do is after I'm done talking, I'll say, "Okay, who are we?" And they'll all shout, "The wolf pack." And I say, "What do we do?" And it's we compete one pitch at a time, which is presence. We throw every pitch with intent. We throw any pitch anytime. We command all our pitches, and at the top of their lungs, they all shout. And then we send each hitter back to the fucking dugout where they fucking came from. And then we break it out. When we break it out, it's out come the wolves on three, and then they all shout, "Out come the wolves," and then they howl.
Well, it's no wonder that the position players are starting to find their way over there now. I'd want to be a part of that. I'd want to be a part of that. Did you find the was there any reluctance or any pushback from these kids, or was the because a wolf pack is it's social, it's no one wants to be a lone wolf. Did you find any reluctance to that, or was just the idea of being a part of a pack something that they had was like it was intrinsic and they dove in?
They honestly, they all bought right in. They all bought right in. Like they were all super excited about it. They continue to be really enthusiastic about it. Sometimes after a long practice or whatever, when they're going through the Wolfpack code, I'll hear some of them like say kind of lazy. They'll say, "No, no, 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 start over, start over. You gotta say it with intent. You gotta respect the spirit of the thing itself." Like one of my favorite books is the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. He's the most famous samurai in the history of Japan, and he talks about the spirit of the thing itself, which is basically intent. But what you want to do is when you strike, you want to yell when you strike, yell when you make the hit, and then yell after to honor the spirit of the thing itself.
And they they've taken on to that idea. Like you mentioned, they finished middle of the league last year, fourth or fifth, maybe towards the bottom, and they've taken on to this, and it shows up on the field, the passion and that, like you said, the spirit of the thing itself. That
Absolutely. Yeah, we every week, like each week, I've been sending out a tweet to. He's the main reporter for OC Varsity for the OC Register. His name's Steve Fryer, and he
legend.
finally showed up. He showed up to our game on Friday, and he watched the whole game, and then he interviewed my pitcher after the game. And so afterwards, I asked the pitcher, I was like, "What would you guys talk about?" And he's like, "Oh, I told him the code of the wolf pack and all the stuff that we work on."
Love that. Love that. And that's how you know when they want to express it to the OC Register. For those who don't know, Steve Fryer, the OC Register, that's a long history of baseball there being covered by him and that newspaper. And to get that kind of coverage is awesome. And then for them to use that platform and talk about what you're teaching and these principles that you've kind of shown them. That's awesome. I want to go back to something that you mentioned. Sorry, the opposite of hitters away is the mechanical. What exactly did you say? I didn't quite catch it.
Mechanical fixation.
Mechanical fixation. So that's something from my experience teaching, coaching 16 to 18-year-olds, especially in baseball. The mechanical fixation might be the strongest because it's such a closed skill. It's not like football or soccer out here where it's like a washing machine really, and they might make a mistake and then they move on, and then I ask footballers out here, what's the technique of kicking a football? Like I've never been taught, like teach me. And they go, I don't know, you just welly it. You just kick it. So the the comparison of sports is it's night and day when it comes to like that fixation of the technical mastery. And it's something I really see in young baseball players, especially with the way social media is. And they can go on YouTube, they can go on Twitter, look at a drill, look at a pitching mechanic and say, yep, that's me. I'm going to do that. How did you get guys to flip off of that? Were they already kind of were they kind of off the mechanics already, or were they kind of mechanically driven and you got them off? And if so, like, how did you do that and how did you sell that?
So in the bullpen, I try not to. I mean, depending on who the pitcher is, I try to say as little as possible about mechanics. Or if I am going to talk about anything mechanical, I only talk about one small thing that they need to do. But it's literally going from, instead of just, okay, you need to keep your shoulder here and you need to do this with your front side, all that stuff. It's okay, go through your pre-pitch routine, visualize the pitch going the way you want to, and then just throw it with intent. So it's more of a cognitive approach rather than a behavioral approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, and it seems to be working. I'm just curious how you sold that. Did your guys just buy into that straight away, or do you still have guys who come up to you and be like, "Coach, fix my mechanics"? I don't. Do you get that?
Not really, honestly, because I think I did a good job of, in the beginning when I was first started working with them. Like, I told them, okay, I've worked with hundreds of D1 pitchers. I've worked with minor leaguers. I worked with the softball pitcher that I mentioned earlier, and they know who she is. And so I didn't do this to say like I'm such a great pitching coach, but it's more, I've done this for these people, so they're like, okay, this guy obviously knows what he's doing. So I've had an overall really good buy-in.
So I have a kind of a deep question to ask Tim.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure it out myself. So picture consciousness, I could tell that it's backed by theory, this model. There's a lot of theory that goes into it. I mean, you just pull apart. You talked about the Bruce Lee what's it called? Taekwondo? No. Jeet Kune Do. Uh, that goes into a lot of ecological dynamics. You be water, be formless. What's the best technique? To have no technique. It's backed by all this science and all this theory, and I'm trying to figure out how it works. But I'd like to ask you, why do you think this works? Why do you think you get such great results? What do you think the reason is that pitchers go, oh yeah, mechanically driven, yeah, forget about it, I'm just going to go here and pitch with intent?
Yeah. So it really comes down to, I mean, with pitchability, with trust, it really comes down to intuition. So there's the Myers-Briggs model, there's sensing, and then there's intuition. I'm a very intuitive person. My score is probably like 90% intuitive, 10% sensing on that dynamic. So I teach pitchers to have more of an intuitive approach and to use their intuition to uh, read a hitter pitch by pitch, um, based on the way they swing the bat, whether or not they swing the bat, what the game situation is, what the score is. And I teach them to have a equal emphasis on all of their pitches. So basically, I had a trainer named Bill Holland, and he used to say, you want to be predictably unpredictable by habitually having no habit. So it's all about Ted Williams. Have you ever read the book, The Science of Hitting? Yeah, so Ted Williams in the book, The Science of Hitting, he talks about the nut and the coconut shell game, where there's two coconuts with one peanut. It's a lot easier to guess where the peanut is after when you have two coconuts. Well, when you introduce a third coconut, it's a lot more difficult to guess where the nut is rather than two. What I do is I teach pitchers to have at least three pitches, maybe four. Like the one that threw on Friday, his name's Becker. He has four pitches that he can throw anytime. So hitters have one in four chance of guessing each pitch. So it makes it a lot more difficult. And Steve Springer's a friend of mine, and he teaches hitters to hunt pitches. So I just say you can hunt whatever pitch you want, but you're not going to be able to guess probably.
Nice. Well, Steve Springer, absolute legend. Play every day
Absolutely,
like it's opening day. Just some
100%.
SoCal legends. You're name dropping some absolute legends of the game in Southern California. You're bringing me back. But so you mentioned again, it's all externally focused, which I love. The pitchability, the coconut game where you're guessing. Do you call pitches? It just made me think. Do you call pitches or do your guys call their own game?
Yeah, I call pitches.
Gotcha. So what are you looking for as far as if we can go into that? What are you looking for in hitters when you're calling a game? Are you looking at your pitcher or are you looking at your hitter and or the hitter at the plate? And how do you do that math?
So I don't have the time to do my chart method, the QPI thing that I was talking about earlier, but
Mhm.
I just do where I'll watch my pitcher release the ball, watch their mechanics. My pitchers are really good for the most part. They don't show too many of the opposite five symptoms that detract from the five mental tools. So I just watch the ball come out of their hand, and then I watch the way that the hitter responds, the way that they swing, stuff like that. At the high school level, pretty much everybody works away, away, away. So a lot of the hitters, they have a tendency to kind of dive forward and try to focus on hitting the ball to right center. So knowing that, I call a lot of inside fastballs and I tunnel the slider off of it, and then I'll tunnel the changeup off the slider, and then the curveball, if it's Becker, I'll call the curveball down. So um, yeah, it's literally, and what I do is I take notes. I'll write the hitter at the left of the paper, and then I'll do at bat one. So I'll write down all the pitches that I throw, and then the next time the hitter comes up, I'll mix it up another way. So it just goes back to the pitchability thing of being predictably unpredictable by habitually having no habits.
Love that. So that you take that into your pitch calling. Love that.
Yeah.
What so you there's this idea of being ready at all times, ready to throw whatever pitch at whatever time, trying to be unpredictable. How I'm curious about your relief pitchers. So how do you get a guy to go from 0 to 100 off the bench, to go from sitting there cheering on his teammates to being the lead, the alpha male, the alpha wolf in the pack on the mound and dominating? That's something that I've struggled with a little bit with younger players, 15, 17, 18 years old, is kind of getting them in that game mode to come out of the pen and throw in high leverage situations. How do you get your guys ready? What do you have any tricks you can share and help me out personally, but also our audience?
Yeah. So we have this we have this pitcher. He plays outfield for us. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, and
Nice.
he's got this really whippy delivery. He throws like 89, 90 right now, but this guy, I'm telling you, this guy can throw 95, 96, possibly even harder. Like the ball it's just different. The ball explodes the last 6 feet before home plate. It's super projectable. And I tell scouts about this guy all the time. And then people ask me, they're like, well, where's he committed? And I said, University of Chicago. And they're all like,
Wow.
what? They're like, what? Like that was the first thing I said. Like the first conversation I had with this kid back in fall when I first got hired. I was like, Chicago? Are you kidding me, dude? Yeah, he's super smart. He has really, really good grades. He's got a 33 ACT. And yeah. He's like, it's a good school. I'm like, yeah, it's a good school, bro, but you can go to Stanford, you can go to Berkeley, you can go to Harvard, you go to Northwestern. I'm like, come on, man. Like, do you realize how good you are? Like he just doesn't he's starting to figure it out now. I mean, because now he says, okay, I'm open to talking to a D1 program as long as the academics are elite. but he's not going to personally reach out to them, like they have to reach out to him. Anyways, so um, he relieves or he closes for us, and I'll go down to the bullpen with him, and I'll remind him of something, like maybe he rolled over on a certain pitch and didn't run very hard to first base or something like that. Because he gets really pissed off if I get on him about not running a hard 90. So I'll watch him start throwing fastballs, and I'll be like, hey, you need to fucking run to first base, dude. You need to run a hard fucking 90. and then he'll start, and then he'll start, he'll, then like I'll see like kind of a look on his face, and then he'll start really zipping the ball in. Like, are you fucking ready? And he's like, yeah. And then I'll say, Paul Abbott. And then if I say Paul Abbott, that means send the fucking hitter back to the fucking dugout. Like, when I'm calling pitches and we get 2 strikes on a hitter, I'll yell out Paul Abbott, because I can't, at least not a high school game, I can't yell out to a pitcher, send him back to the fucking dugout, because then the umpires will get pissed off. But so I'll just yell out Paul Abbott.
Nice, nice. That shout out to Paul Abbott, man. Shout out to Paul Abbott. I just getting him externally focused and then using some external cues to fire him up and get the engine going internally instead of saying, you got to throw harder here, start ramping it up. You stay on the external, which I love. That's all really good stuff, Tim. This framework is incredible, and yeah, I'm sure someone out here in Great Britain will be able to pull some of these principles and use them on the pitching, because we are a bit behind on the pitching side. We've developed some pretty good pitchers. We've developed some pretty good hitters. The pool of pitchers, it's not very large, at least for homegrown talent. So it is very important. And as you probably know, if you have good pitchers, that creates good hitters, because the hitters have to adapt to the good pitching. So I think that's where it all starts. We end the Coaching Union podcast with a lightning round, Tim. 3 questions. Shout out to Eric Cressy, who I stole the idea from his podcast. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First question is always a book or a podcast that you would recommend to any coach.
My book for a pitching coach, I recommend my book, Pitcher Consciousness 5.0. But for any coach out there, I strongly recommend Relentless by Tim Grover. Relentless by Tim Grover is honestly life-changing. I love his discussion about going to the dark side, using your dark side to achieve greatness, and just having that mindset of being relentlessly driven to win and wanting to win over and over and never stopping. Yeah, so Relentless, definitely Relentless.
Great book. Great book. It's been a few years, so it's a bit spotty for me, but Tim Grover found common traits training Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade over his 25-year career. Grover, I don't know if he's still at it, but for a span of 25 years, I think ish, he trained those 3 guys, and he was their guy alongside running his gym. That was his main focus, were those 3 guys at separate times, and he found common traits in all of them and wrote a book and called it Relentless. Yeah, profound book. Thank you for that, Tim. Second question. So you are a Dodgers fan?
Yes.
Correct. So I want to know who's your idol, who's your Dodger idol growing up?
Definitely Scott Radinsky. I'm really into punk rock, and when I was a kid, I grew up listening to punk rock. I still listen to punk rock religiously, and I was also really into skateboarding. And I just remember there was a special on MTV of Scott Radinsky where he had the skate lab in Simi Valley, and they showed his band, which is Pulley. He was in 10-foot pole before Pulley, but they showed Pulley playing live, and then they showed him. Oh yeah, he's a relief pitcher for the Dodgers. So I used to go to Dodger games when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old. I would go just to watch him pitch. Like, I thought he was the most pitching dude ever because he was in a punk rock band and he was a pro skater, and He was also a big league pitcher. So definitely Scott Radinsky.
How did I not know that? Pulley, 10-foot pole,
Yeah.
pitch for the Dodgers. That's wild. Okay. Well, I had no idea. Okay. I know the bands and I know the picture. I never put that together. I never put it together. Wow. Yeah. Learning something new every day. I didn't think you'd go with that. I don't know. I thought you'd go with like Mike Piazza or something.
My mom loved Mike Piazza. Like she used to want to sit behind home plate because she loved Mike Piazza.
He's a stud, man. Well, I grew up next to Angel Stadium. I would probably consider I'm a Yankee fan, unfortunately. I was
Okay.
indoctrinated by my dad, but so I was a neutral, Angels and Dodgers. I was a neutral. I appreciate them both very much. And we had it good growing up in SoCal, man. We had those teams in the early 90s with all the rookies coming up. Hideo Nomo, Mike Piazza, Raul Mondesi, Eric Karros. You had Vin Scully narrating our childhood when it comes to baseball. Like, yeah, we had it good. I just didn't know you'd go with Scott Radinsky out of all of them. That's good. I like the curveball. Be unpredictable, right? Last question, Tim. Final question. This is a SoCal question. Some people might not get it. Others might appreciate it. What's your go-to In-N-Out order?
So I'll go double with spread and pickles only, like no tomatoes and no lettuce. And then I'll get animal style fries with no onions. I don't really like onions that much. And then if I'm really feeling crazy, I'll get a milkshake too.
What kind of milkshake? What's your go-to milkshake?
Oh, just vanilla.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I'm missing In-N-Out a lot these days. I miss my 4x4 with only grilled onions, regular fries, large Arnold Palmer, and a Neapolitan shake. Have one for me, Tim.
Will do, man. Will do.
Right on. Thank you so much for the time and the insights. And it's just such a unique and a very passionate way of looking at things that is backed by science. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. If anyone listening wants to follow you on your journey, learn more about you, buy the Picture Consciousness 5.0 book, where can they find you? Where can they find the book? That's it.
You can get it on Amazon. I think Amazon ships in Britain, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can it's on Amazon. So just Picture Consciousness 5.0 by Tim Ballgame Nolan. And yeah, you can get it.
Any social media, anything, anywhere you're active and they might be able to reach out?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. My handle is Ballgame, and it's also the same on Instagram too.
Nice one. Tim, thank you so much again for your time.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Coaching Union podcast. It was such an insightful and unique conversation, and I really enjoyed learning about Tim's approach to preparing pitchers for high-pressure moments. Remember, if you're ready for personalized coaching or playing guidance, reach out to me at thecoachingunion@gmail.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your feedback. It helps us grow this community. I'm Jonathan Rodriguez, and until next time, keep growing. Bye, everyone.